What if the two cheapest things in your kitchen, a pinch of salt and a strip of aluminum foil, could keep you warm without burning a single dollar of gas, without touching a thermostat, and without paying a cent on your energy bill? Not a gadget, not a gimmick. Just two things you already own working together in a way that almost nobody talks about anymore. And here's the part that makes this even stranger. This principle was documented over 100 years ago, 1912, written into the science of thermal behavior and passive heat management. And somehow, in a world where people are paying $400, $500, even $600 a month, just to stay warm, this knowledge quietly faded into the background. Today, that changes. Before you assume this is some kind of trick or oversimplification, stay with me. Because what you're about to learn is not magic. It is physics. It is chemistry. It is the kind of quiet, powerful truth that tends to get buried under the noise of expensive solutions. Solutions that someone, somewhere, profits from. This isn't about rejecting modern heating. It is about understanding that your body, your home, and your environment are already doing most of the work. You just haven't been shown how to direct that work. Salt and foil are not the solution themselves. They are keys that unlock a principle most people have never been taught. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Let's start with the problem as most people experience it. Winter comes, temperatures drop, you turn up the heat, the furnace kicks on, burns fuel, pumps warmth through vents, and sends your bill through the roof. Or maybe you use electric space heaters, drawing hundreds of watts per hour, running all night, and still leaving cold corners in the room. Or maybe you pile on blankets and accept that certain parts of your home are just always going to be cold. This is the standard picture. It is familiar. It is expensive. And according to the U.S. Energy Information Administration, the average American household spends over $1,500 a year just on space heating. That is a car payment. That is groceries for a family for months. And for that money, most homes are still inefficient, losing heat through walls, floors, windows, and gaps that no thermostat can fix. The contrast is this. What if instead of generating more heat, you simply stopped losing the heat you already have? What if the warmth your body produces, the warmth from cooking, from sunlight, from even a single candle, what if all of that could be captured, reflected, and held in place without a single kilowatt of electricity? That is the core of what we are talking about today. And salt and aluminum foil are the two elements that make this work in a way that is both scientifically grounded and practically simple. Here is how it works, and pay close attention, because this is where it gets genuinely fascinating. Your body produces heat constantly. Every minute of every day, your metabolism is generating thermal energy, approximately 80 watts of heat at rest, more when you're moving. That heat radiates outward in every direction. It warms the air around you. It transfers into whatever surface you are sitting or lying on. And then, in most homes, it escapes through thin walls, through uninsulated floors, through single-pane windows, through radiative loss into cold surfaces nearby. The heat is there. It just has nowhere to stay. Now, aluminum foil is one of the most effective radiant heat reflectors known to materials science. Its emissivity rating, the measure of how much thermal radiation a surface absorbs versus reflects, is extraordinarily low. Close to 0.03 on a scale where 1.0 means it absorbs everything. In plain language, foil does not absorb heat. It bounces it back. When you place a layer of foil behind a radiator, beneath a mattress, or along a cold exterior wall, it acts like a mirror for heat, sending thermal energy back into the room instead of letting it sink into the wall behind it. Studies from the UK and Scandinavia, where cold weather efficiency research is robust, have shown that foil-backed insulation in domestic settings can reduce radiant heat loss by 30 to 45% in targeted areas. That is not a rounding error. That is a structural shift in how your home retains warmth. Now, where does salt come in? Salt has a thermal property that is less commonly discussed, but equally remarkable. Its specific heat capacity, the amount of energy required to raise its temperature, is relatively low, meaning it heats up quickly. But more importantly, certain salt compounds, particularly when dampened slightly and sealed in a simple container, can absorb and then slowly re-release thermal energy over an extended period. This is the principle behind thermal mass heating, and it has been used in various forms since the early 20th century. In 1912, engineers working on passive building systems in Central Europe were documenting the use of mineral salts as thermal buffer materials, substances placed near heat sources that would absorb excess warmth and release it gradually over hours, leveling out the peaks and valleys of temperature fluctuation. The idea is simple. Salt stores heat. Foil keeps it from escaping. Together, they create a passive thermal management system that costs almost nothing. Here's the practical application, step by step, and this is where it becomes real for you. The first thing you do is take a flat sheet of heavy-duty aluminum foil and place it behind any radiator or baseboard heater in your home. Secure it to the wall with nothing more than painter's tape, reflective side, facing outward into the room. The reason is exactly what we described. Instead of the wall behind the radiator, absorbing and then wasting that heat into the exterior, the foil bounces it back into the living space. Immediate, passive, free. The second element is a salt thermal pack. Take a thick, sealable plastic bag or a cloth pouch. Fill it with coarse salt, rock salt, kosher salt, sea salt, any of these will work. Place this pack near your heat source for 30 to 45 minutes, near a vent, on a warm radiator shelf, or even in a patch of direct winter sunlight near a window. The salt absorbs that warmth. Then move the pack to where you need it, under blankets near your feet, placed at the base of your bed before sleep. Coarse salt retains usable warmth for 2 to 4 hours depending on the ambient temperature of the room. It does not burn, it does not emit anything, it simply releases what it's stored. The third and most powerful application is combining both. Line the interior of a small insulated box, a shoebox, a cooler, any rigid container, with foil on all interior surfaces. Place a warm salt pack inside. The foil reflects the heat radiated by the salt back inward rather than letting it dissipate. What you have created is a passive heat retention unit that can maintain warmth, significantly longer than the salt pack alone. People who use this method report keeping small spaces, under a desk, inside a tent, within a sleeping area, meaningfully warmer for 3 to 6 hours with no ongoing energy input. Now, let us talk about value in plain numbers. A box of kosher salt costs roughly $2 and will last months for this purpose. A roll of heavy-duty aluminum foil costs $3 to $4 at any grocery store. Total investment, under $6. Compare that to an electric space heater running at 0.500 watts for 6 hours per night. At the average U.S. electricity rate, that is roughly 1.62 per night. Over a single winter month, that is nearly $50 for one heater, for one room, in 1 month. The foil and salt method does not replace your heating system for a whole house in extreme cold. That would be an unrealistic claim, and this channel does not make unrealistic claims. But as a supplemental strategy, particularly for sleeping areas, personal workspaces, underheated rooms, or emergency preparedness, the cost comparison is extraordinary. $6 versus $50. Once versus monthly, passive versus powered. And this is the moment to be honest with you, because trust matters more than a dramatic finish. This method has real constraints. In genuinely extreme cold, temperatures below 20 degrees Fahrenheit with no supplemental heating at all, salt and foil alone are not sufficient to maintain a comfortable environment. This is not a survival solution for a house that has completely lost heat in a blizzard. For that, you need proper emergency protocols. Additionally, the foil behind radiator technique works best in rooms where the radiator is positioned against an exterior wall. If your radiator is on an interior wall, the efficiency gain is less significant. The salt pack method also requires a heat source to charge it. If you have no warm space at all, you cannot store warmth you do not have. These are honest, important boundaries. But within the right conditions, and those conditions describe the daily winter situation for millions of American homes, this is a genuinely useful, genuinely affordable tool. The core idea, said one more time in the simplest possible terms, heat is already all around you. Your body makes it. Your appliances make it. Sunlight brings it through your windows every clear winter day. The enemy is not cold. The enemy is the loss of heat you are already generating. Foil stops that loss by reflection. Salt extends that warmth by storage. The combination gives you passive, sustainable, zero-cost thermal benefit that the heating industry has never had a reason to promote, because it cannot be metered, billed, or sold as a subscription. Picture this. It is February, 2 in the morning. The temperature outside has dropped to 28 degrees. You are in bed, and the room feels cold at the edges. That draft along the floor, the wall behind your headboard that always feels like ice. But tonight is different. You placed a foil barrier behind the baseboard heater 3 weeks ago. You warmed a salt pack before bed and tucked it under the foot of your blanket. The foil is quietly bouncing warmth back from the heater rather than letting the wall behind it drink it up. The salt is releasing its stored heat slowly, steadily, into the air pocket beneath your covers. You're not cranking the thermostat. You're not running a space heater. You're not adding to this month's bill. You are just warm. And you will be until morning. That is not a fantasy. That is physics working for you instead of against you. If this gave you something real, a new way of thinking about warmth, about energy, about the overlooked tools in your own kitchen, share it with someone who is paying too much to stay warm this winter. Not because of a like count, but because the information is worth passing on. And if you want to go deeper into practical, science-backed ways to protect your health, your comfort, and your budget, using what you already have, you know where to find us. VitaNova Health. Real knowledge, real results. See you in the next one.